Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. We have a good amount of interest among independent musicians to navigate this crazy world of synchronization, also what they're going through right now, like all the musicians globally. It's the first time, like it's just a leveler.
Yeah.
So we had these questions come up frequently. Thank you for agreeing to sit down with us for a day. And would you we'll just get right into it. I think people are already in. So how would you start with it, just introducing yourself?
My name's Art Ford, and I'm the owner of Ford Music Services. We play songs in film, TV, commercials, various audio visual placements, and God, I've done this for 30 years, I guess, a long time. And it's still, I love the job. It's very short attention span. Me being a drummer from way back, it fits my personality quite well. Yeah. And you had asked, how I came into the music business and how I got into synchronization, which is
so yeah, we were at the point where we were like, how did you get into sync business? How did you get into the music industry? And if you could talk a little bit about synchronization as such.
Sure. I got into it. I started playing drums with bands and nightclubs when I was 15 and played all the way through college. And then decided I was going to be a professional musician, and so I had to move out of my hometown and moved to Seattle and toured with bands for many years and played studio drumming and a lot of session work. And eventually I got in a real bad car wreck in the mid-'80s. A drunk kid came down the road at the freeway in the wrong direction, and I hit him head on. And needless to say, it kind of stopped my drumming career. And I'd been producing bands as I was playing in bands before that. And I decided to stay, in the music business because I knew it and I loved it. And I started as a talent scout for Atlantic Records up in Seattle, bringing a lot of what is now called the grunge groups down. And then I got offered a job in Los Angeles for an MCA label to come down and work A&R, and that's signing new groups and developing groups and artists, and even did a short run of road managing like bands like Rat and LA Guns and some of these bigger rock bands. And they didn't have a synchronization person at the label at the time. And being that we had so many major artists, I thought there was I couldn't really sign the bands I wanted to there because I wasn't in a high enough position to really sign the groups I brought into the label. So I started fielding requests from different studios to license artists like Rat and LA Guns. At that time, it was the 90s. We had Richard Marx and various bands like that. And started placing bands in TV shows and movies. And I loved it because it was very short attention span. And being a drummer, that's one of the things that works for me. And there was a lot of money involved. You could really help launch a band and catapult them out into, some real new audiences. And started doing well enough with the label that the head of the label allowed me to start picking up non-competing catalogs from other labels. So I got Priority Records at that time to get all the hardcore gangster rap at that point, and then I had a gentleman named Pat Higdon out of Nashville. I started getting country music out of there. So to be a first call with the studios, you need to have all different types of music in every decade, and it's like going into a shopping center and not just selling shoes. You sell everything. And so I started making a lot of placements, and in the process, I met Danny Strick, the head of BMG Publishing, and we really struck it off. And eventually, he hired me to run BMG's synchronization division. And what synchronization means is you're synchronizing audio recording to a visual. So when people say sync, that's what they're referring to. And I started with just myself, and then eventually got an assistant, and they put big business plans on me, and I found ways of hitting them, and so they gave me more and more staff. I ended up running BMG's film and TV departments for about 12 years, and was vice president there, and eventually left to start my own company. And I've been independent here for about 15 years, and doing a lot of different placements in film, TV, and commercials. It's a booming business right now, with everybody stuck in front of their TV sets, consuming content. So even though the touring business is, basically not happening because of COVID, the synchronization world is quite healthy, and it's a great way for young artists to, make money and get exposure and really learn how to make records, make really professional sounding recordings. Yeah, I'm trying to think here. I guess I got into the business side of it more because I ended up being the leader of the band, not because I wanted to, but because I got tired of showing up at the clubs and the club owners going, "No, you guys are here next weekend." No, so I ended up, being the drummer. You always seem to be the guy that has the van and the PA system and everything else. So, that's how I kind of got into the business side.
That's cool. So the next thing, like just an obvious lead in from there, like you talked about being a musician yourself. How has that helped or affected the way of how you're doing the business?
Well, being a musician and getting into synchronization is kind of one and the same, because you know how to speak to other musicians. You're not like some business guy that's trying to communicate with them, and you don't have the same vocabulary. But you feel their pain, so you know what they're going through. So it's really helped me. And then being a producer too, I produced a lot of records, and so when you're having songs created for a TV show or a film, you can really speak specifically to what they could do or not do to make it work correctly to picture. And a lot of times songwriters and artists are really great with their music, but they don't have that eye to put songs to picture in it. And it's kind of a different beast. But when you get it right, you can, actually change the world in a small way, because people, a lot of times in these scenes, the music charges the scene emotionally in a way that it seeps inside the audience, and they emotionally connect with a character, or they might see a prejudice or something that they have from the character, and how that music sucked them into it. And if it's really, when the music's really great, you don't even hear it. It's all you're inside of it. So those are the times when you really feel proud about what you're doing. And a lot of times it's more just replacing a song because they can't afford it, and maybe it's the tempo or the vibe of the song or the lyric that makes it work for the scene, and you have to find ideas that will replace it and speak to the scene properly.
Yes, like all iconic scenes have iconic music.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. A lot of times you have filmmakers that have a champagne taste, but they have a beer budget. And it's like, it's hard to, especially if a filmmaker has temped a big song in their queue, and now they have to take it out because they're not going to be able to afford it. it's really hard. It's called temp love, it's hard to get a filmmaker off that and to really listen to a new piece of music. So that's a whole other process within itself.
So you're moving on from there, like how, since your experience in the industry has been decades, like how do you, so that gives you a really unique perspective, because like it has changed a lot since you got into now, and over the last few years the rate of change has been faster. So
Definitely.
what do you think, how has the changes, how have they affected your business? What do you think has changed, like most?
Well, I mean, now I firmly believe it's the best time ever to be an independent artist, because there's not, labels used to hold the door to getting worldwide distribution, and now with the internet and all the resources that songwriters have to be able to get their music out there where they can connect with fans, the fans become the judge. You don't have to go get a record deal. In fact, I'd say close to half of the hit records you're hearing on the radio now are not with major labels. They're artists that have developed their own social networking, their tribe. They have people, I know artists that let their fans know they're coming into certain areas, and the fans will give them a place to sleep and pick them up at the airport and everything else, So it's a great time to be in, and a great time to be in synchronization, because the dollars are not quite as high as they were back in the .com era for licensing songs, but there's way more licensing. There's way more. There used to be a dozen or so analog, old school broadcast television networks. Now with the internet, with Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, there's 150 TV shows that they're licensing music, So then the job of, how does an artist get their music to those shows? And if you can, if you know a company like mine that'll take artists on non-exclusively, the artist can do various with placement companies. They can do deals with various placement companies that already have connections that will plug them into the opportunities, or they can research. If you see a TV show that you really feel your music is appropriate for, it's not that hard to get online and find out who the music supervisor is. And now with TuneFind and some of these other sites, you can go in and study and listen to all what music they've licensed in every episode, and they have scene descriptions. So you can really get a sense of what music environments, and maybe there's a nightclub that reoccurs in the show, that, they use a certain kind of indie music for, and there might be a character that they listen to a certain type of hip hop or another style of music. So you can really target. The best thing to do is do your research before you try to get in touch with a music supervisor. And then if you're going to pitch your songs to them, it's less meaning more. It's better. I don't think I would ever send anybody over a half a dozen songs. And if you're independent, they're looking for one-stop songs. And what that means is they can make one call to you, and you can license the master recording and the musical composition, because in every song that you hear play on TV or in films, there's two intellectual properties. There's the recording, the artist created that recording, and then the songwriter wrote the song, the musical composition. And many times, like say for example, Frank Sinatra, "My Way," and that's his signature song, but he didn't write that song. That was written by a French writer and a Chrysalis writer here, and in the old days, it used to be a lot more that way, where artists would look for songs. Now it's more artist-driven kind of songwriting with contemporary music anyway. And but you just have to do your homework and know those intellectual properties. And a license, a synchronization license to license your song to a show is basically like a rental agreement. That's an easy way of looking at it. You're renting your song to them for a certain period of time. And with feature film, it's always perpetuity, forever. For a certain group of media, that could be the internet, broadcast television, the radio, whatever. And a certain type of use. If it's a visual vocal, somebody singing it on camera, that obviously is going to pay more than playing way in the background as an instrumental in a nightclub. The only time exclusivities are asked for on songs is sometimes in commercials. When you license your song to, say, McDonald's, well, they may want to have exclusivity for fast food restaurants for that period of time that you're licensing the song. But for film and TV, it's never an exclusive license. It could be, I guess, everything in life has a price, but they'd have to pay a lot of money for that to take out of the industry.
So, I think you covered part of what we were going to ask next about, how do you, as an independent musician, even approach the industry? What do you think, with all the new technological advancement in terms of platforms and website apps, how have they changed the scene at all? Do you you touched upon this before, in the first question. You think this is the best time for independent artists at all? So
not easy, but it's the best.
So what do you think was good? What's good out of this, and what's not not good out of this technology in business?
Well, first of all, there's creative exchange. Your company, there's these kind of companies that are supportive of the creative process. And there's a lot of them. I mentioned TuneFind about you have these research abilities. YouTube. I mean, there's so many ways. LinkedIn. And A&R, like with record labels now. They're the job of sitting there going through LinkedIn and YouTube and find Spotify, finding the groups that are getting all these streams, and they're going, what's happening here? When it used to be, you'd go out to nightclubs and see them and see how many people were there and all that. Well, now it's done remotely a lot, So that's the upside. There's just lots of resources that there wasn't before, and you can track down all sorts of information, not only about how to pitch your songs, but a real main point is that you want your songs to sound like records. And when I say records, no demos allowed. They can't be all discombobulated mixes where, it sounds like a demo. And there's no excuse for that in this day and age with all the technology. To go back to technology, my God, with Pro Tools and Logic and all this, it's just your ears. You're not limited. It used to be you'd have to rent a 24-track studio for $300 an hour, and you're in there trying to come up with these magical performances instantly. And as a drummer, you have to tune your drums for a half a day, and then you've got to lay down 3 or 4 tracks perfectly. You can't punch in the old days. You couldn't punch in and fix drum parts. Now you just copy and paste. No, I like that, and loop this, and
the cost of error has gone down a lot.
Yeah. And in some ways, it allows a young producer artist to even get in trouble, because they have too many choices. When you have limited choices, you have to find ways of making it great within. You have to paint the Mona Lisa on a postage stamp. And so it's different in that sense. Downfalls are that you have too many choices, and you can get just drowned in manuals of trying to figure out this piece of software and you lose your whole creative flow. So, you just have to do it. Now with the COVID going on, this is the best time to be prolific, because you don't have that little voice in your head going, man, I could be out hanging with my friends at the beach now, or I should be out on a club tonight. No, you have an opportunity to create great music. And, in the sync world, you get paid on this stuff. You get paid 4 to 6 weeks after an air date, you get a check. It isn't like a record label, you sign to a major label. When that dollar comes into the label, you're not going to see your share of that dollar for about 18 months after that.
And that is a very important thing, because it's like what independence should give you is the ability to earn almost immediately. And if that's not happening, then that's one of the positives of being independent, because you're sort of controlling your destiny at some point. And that's the same thing. It's like, even though everybody can be independent, still it's a very tough landscape to navigate. So I wanted to just touch upon what's the importance of hiring a manager, or people, somebody like you, how you come into the business, and what should be people looking out for when they're doing that?
Well, I think if you're going to be, considering having a placement company like mine work with you, unless a company is advancing you monies on future royalties, don't sign an exclusive deal. Because most of the time what happens, the companies hype you up on all the placements they've made and this and that, and then they don't do anything, and you're sitting there for 2 years or however long the agreement is, out of the business. You're out of the business. Record labels used to do that when they knew that was going to be a competitor group out for one of their big ones. They would sign them to some exclusive development deal just to take them out of the business. So I always suggest to groups is do non-exclusive placement deals with multiple companies, and because every company gets asked for, they get pulled in on different types of searches. I get pulled in on certain types of searches because of the catalog I have, and other placement companies have niche catalogs. They might have indie rock or hip hop or whatever it is, but they don't have Sarah Vaughan or Billie Holiday or going. So with me, I always try to have the best of the best real artists from the 1920s until the latest, hippest electronica. I'm very strong in hip hop and urban music. I do a lot of urban music because, the studios, I've done hundreds of licenses with every studio, if not thousands, with some of them. But they know they can trust me when I say there's no samples, there's no interpolations, there's no third-party clearances necessary. So, that's what I would advise. And then you learn to be pitching your music on yourself. Have some companies working for you, and you do it. But if you have time, but it's always good to put your time into what you do best. Be creative and be an artist. And then managers and that sort of thing. I don't think you really need managers until a little later on, where there's something to manage. You've got a tour that you have to deal with. You've got TV shows, social networking events, whatever. I think, most people in this day and age, they want artists that are as much businessmen and women as they are creative sources. And it used the days of, the artist is just creative and his business manager deals with the money, and the manager deals with the booking and that sort of thing. There's definitely a time and place for that, but initially, to get your songs in film and TV, you don't need that.
Thank you for that. That's great stuff. So there's audiences chiming in. Good stuff. Quite a few people saying hi. Gabe Kubanda says, "Oh hi, Art. Great to see you again."
Gabe. Hello, Gabe.
Obin says hi. Steven says, "Well said. Helps being a lot being a musician in the music business." Scott's chiming with, "Very helpful if you happen to be able to switch between left brain, right brain."
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's one of my lines. Have both sides of the brain working here.
There's a question. We'll just take one question. There's some questions here. Sophia asks, "What skills does a foreign composer has to have if he wants to establish a career in America's music industry," according to Mr. Ford?
Okay. As a composer, and that's different than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about songs, source music. That's what it's called. A song plays in a certain bar, or it's in a source. But custom underscore, that's a whole different thing. And there's agencies here in Los Angeles, Gorfain Schwartz agency, Engelcraft, Fortress Management. There's big ones that handle lots of composers. I would say with a young composer, it's always great to be, show up at the football field, I mean, if you want to play. So there's Los Angeles, even more so than New York, as far as composer work. This is arguably the heart of where the football field is that you show up to play at. So, if you can, be a person and show up in person now with COVID and stuff, I don't know if it matters too much. But the first thing I would do, no matter where you're at, is if you find a young filmmaker, or even someone that's, experimenting with making videos and so forth, create a reel. You create underscore to that little indie film, and do it. I mean, to get your reel, do it for a little bit of nothing to have the reel, and then be able to show the cornerstones of what you do. Is it orchestral? Is it industrial? Is it urban? What is the flavor of underscore? Where do you really live? And then have a show reel to be able to present to other filmmakers, to executive producers for TV shows, to the big agents. If you get an agent like a Gorfain Schwartz or one of these big agencies behind you, these guys are very powerful in securing big composer deals, even for young composers. And it's hard, just like a record label, it's hard being the new kid on the block to get people to pay attention to you. But, you got to be, I always say, be like Madonna. Somebody's putting a block up in front of you. You go around them, you go under them, you go over them, you go through them. You find a way to do what you do. If you have to be rugged in the sense of, if you come out here to be an actor, you're going to have people saying no to you continually. And it's the same way in pitch and music. You have to thank them for telling you that you're too short and you have the wrong color hair and I'm using that as a metaphor for music, but just thank them for the opportunity of being able to play them some music, but less meaning more. If you have one great song that's great for a cue, pitch it, or 3 songs. Don't expect people to go through 12 songs. They're going to go, I told you what I'm looking for. What didn't you hear? And all these songs are not even close to what they're asking for. So that's a good way of looking at it.
There's so Scott McQueen says, it's like, you can have, like, it's written a long thing about, like, agreeing with, like, this is great stuff, agreeing with everything Art saying, like, you can have amazing connections, but if you can't get a product together, it doesn't matter.
That's right. That's right. Make records, not demos. There's no excuses. You shouldn't be playing your songs and go, well, just, I'm going to have it mastered and I'm going to have a good mix. Don't play it to anybody until you're going, this. Bounce it off people that will tell you the truth, because your friends will go, oh, you're great, whatever. But, take it to people that are experienced and will tell you and ask them for the truth, because that's how you grow, and you gotta, sometimes hold your ego and your pride inside,
We have a couple of more questions here. It's like Cindy Levin says, once something is in a tangible medium, it is covered by copyrights. The link gives you right to go for damages. I hope you don't mind me butting in.
Well, like I said before, there's 2 intellectual properties that you license when you're licensing a song, and it's a master recording and it's a musical composition. So, it's easy to, do the poor man's form of protecting your copyright. You can put a CD of your songs in a package and mail it to yourself, and take that unopened postmarked package and put it in a drawer. That will work in court. So nobody can take that song and say, well, I wrote that. Well, no, you got the U.S. Postage Office saying that I wrote it, because you open this up, there's the song. So there's that. Songs really, you don't need to have, them all copywritten and so forth, really, until you license them and expose them to the public. I'd say prior to that, you just do the poor man's, method of mailing it to yourself, because I think it's about $35, $40 a song, might be more now, to register it with the U.S. Copyright Office. And, if you're doing a whole album and you're a kid, you don't have $500 to be, on that, So, that's a good way of looking at it.
And Cindy Levin, in fact, was answering the question from Scott Mueller up, who was asking about how do you handle the copyrights for source music, alternate, basically going through the thing. So she was, they were actually answering the questions above. So thanks for that, Cindy. Graham Thompson is how do you find company? Is there a directory of companies, or is it just searching online?
Searching online is good. There's a book that would be really good to get, a gentleman named Rich Ezra. He has a film and television contact book that you can order online, and you can get it either in a digital form, and it gives you all the listings of all the music supervisors, their numbers, their emails, their job titles. It gives you the names of the heads of Warner Brothers Pictures film music department and their numbers. And some of them you have to go through managers now, because the supervisors are so overrun by young artists sending them music. They have to they have to have a manager to kind of sift through who's real and not real, because you can spend your whole life just listening to tapes and not doing your job of putting the songs in your TV show. So, but Rich Ezra's book, ESRA is, I believe, the way he spells his Ezra.
Yeah,
Rich
so
Ezra.
This is an amazing coincidence. We're having Rich next week or the week after that. So it's really coincidental. You're just mentioning that he's coming on the week after next. Actually,
tell him hi from me.
So he did say. So we were talking, and he did say was talking to Arts coming on. It's yeah, I definitely know Art. Say hi to him.
Yeah.
It's this is funny. You should. So we'll for the audience, we will have Rich. Art was just mentioning Rich Ezra. We will have Rich on here in the next week or two. We'll announce the date. You'll get it in your email, of course, if you're signed up for this, and we'll get the dates pretty soon here. And then you can go over that list. But yes, it's fairly extensive. We work with rich on like newsletters and stuff. It's very thorough job.
And
like,
he's really up on a lot of the changes that are going on in the music business too. He's been in the business for a long time, so it's not a hype thing. He knows what he's talking about.
That's perfect. And thank you, Scott, for putting in the link there. He actually put in the link to Rich's website.
Oh, perfect. That'll be great.
This is going great. One more audience question, and we'll take this. That's the audience question. We'll take it after this last question. Is any music like better suited to, like, in your experience, like what you've done? I know it's sort of a big question, but is anything better suited to be case than others?
Well, I would say just in general, going back to music that sounds like a record and not a demo. So when you get your recordings and you think you've got a great mix, A/B them against other artists that are popular in that style. Make sure your digital levels are up. Many times they're not mastered and they're a couple dB low in the volume level of the overall mix. And just that alone, people, they're playing them up against other songs that are right here in their face. And then this one's real aired out and way in the background. And it's just a volume thing, so make sure you master your recordings and get them, A/B them against other known artists that have great recordings that record in the same style. If it's an organic kind of artist that use real drums and real guitars, well then, don't be comparing it to Paul Oakenfold and some electronica artists. But, on the other side of the fence, if you're a hip hop artist, there's a lot of great producers out there that you want to, A/B your stuff. And, in that world, don't just go to Guitar Center and get all the same pre-cleared sample disc that everybody else do. Even though the form is built upon sampling, the real great producers, they create their own samples. They really dirty up something and do low resolution MP3s, and they crush them and they make it where it sounds, it has that sample kind of dirt that is added into the urban kind of grit of the song, but they're not going to Guitar Center and you hear these same samples over and over again. Let's see, I'd say, it's good to have a overall knowledge of music just in general. To me, there's only two types of music. People ask me what I like, and I said there's only two types. There's real, authentic artists that have something to say. They're not trying to be a rock star and make $1 million. They're going to do it whether they make a buck or not. That's who they are. And then there's the copiers. There's the ones that are trying to be a rock star and be like somebody they see on TV. And it's that in any style, and it's that whether it be country music, electronica, hip hop, big band, whatever, So, find your own original sound and, bounce it off people that'll tell you the truth. Because that's how you get big real quick,
We'll take on this couple of last audience questions. We're coming up to wrapping it here. Scott Mueller asks, do you need to be part of SAG-AFTRA if you're going to sing on a main track on a show or a radio commercial?
On a commercial, you would want to, and you don't have to be a member. You can do it once. It's called a Taft-Hartley, where they give you a free pass to receive ATRA and so forth. But after that, if you're being in lots of commercials, you do. You need to join. As far as, with just your music being featured in a TV show or a movie, you don't have to be, because you have BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC. You have one of the Performing Rights Society, as long as you're registered with that society. And the only way you're going to earn your performance royalties, because every time your song plays in a TV show, that network has to turn in a cue sheet to ASCAP and BMI, and that network has a license with these performing rights organizations. They call them a PRO. If you say, people say a PRO, that's what it is. And now there's kind of the equivalent of these PROs with master recordings. It used to be just that it was, with the musical compositions, but now you have Sound Exchange and you have Exploration IO, that they collect streaming performance royalties from the YouTubes and the Spotifys and all that. So, if you're releasing records, or if you're have your music in a TV show or a movie, you just need to be, sign up, and you can sign up with YouTube and so forth too, so they recognize who you are.
That's awesome. I think this, thanks for again taking the time and answering all the questions, and great advice to all the musicians and music industry professionals who have tuned in. And we're glad to have you on here, and hope maybe in the future we'll come back sometime.
I'd love to.
We'll see. And
thanks everybody, and good luck. Keep pushing here. This is the time.